McNair gives it to George, running right up the middle. Touchdown! Titans! There are no flags on the field! It's a miracle!
Safety, now you're one-on-one with it.
Shows why he's the man! In trouble. Sack!
Ladies and gentlemen, Titan Nation, welcome back to another episode. Today, my special guest, yes, he's a former Tennessee Titans Super Bowl champion winner. We have Craig Hentrich. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you for coming on, man. And let's talk about the Titans history, because yes, we know you won a Super Bowl with the Packers, and that must have been awesome. But I bet you your experience was much better in Tennessee. Talking about Tennessee, because at that time when you finally made that move, it was the Tennessee Oilers, right? It was the team was just announced and everything. So how did that come about? And if you can explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I came the second year as the Tennessee Oilers. The first year they played in Memphis, and that wasn't the year I came. I came the year they played at Vanderbilt Stadium,
Okay.
which was the last year of the Oilers. And so I got to see the whole transfer of the team, the name of the team, and into the new stadium, and it was quite an experience.
Yeah, I mean, especially back in the day, like I said, you were like one of the longest tenured active football players for the Titans. I mean, you played from what, 98 to
2010.
2010, like, so you've seen the transition of every single Titans team in general with coaching and everything. I mean, you've been through it all, just like the fans. So I mean, we gotta get. I appreciate the effort, sir, because man, like you said, we had some really good Titans team, and then there's times where it was like, man, what are we watching? And it was rough. Talking about your transition and when you went to who was the first person you talked to when you were, got hired by the Tennessee Oilers and stuff? And what was your, I guess, your outlook on the team at the time?
I was a free agent in Green Bay in after the season of '97, and I came here on a visit and got to meet with Floyd Reese, who was the general manager at the time, and obviously Coach Fisher, and just got to meet a few of the players. I knew Al Del Greco from golf playing days back then, and I just really had a good feeling about kind of the direction this team was taking. I knew that we had a great quarterback in Steve McNair. We had Frank Wycheck and Brad Hopkins and all the great Titans of old. And I just knew that I had a feeling this was going to be a fun journey down here. And that's the first people that I talked to down here, and I really fell in love with the town, obviously.
Nice. Now, what was your first game? It was you said Vanderbilt, right? How was that experience? Because again, like I said, you've been here for so long, you transitioned to finally, the Coliseum, and then from that for LP Field and all that and so forth. So how was that experience playing in Vanderbilt?
Well, it was obviously different. I played in Green Bay for 5 years prior to that, and so the electricity in Green Bay at the time when I came to it was a little bit different.
Yeah,
we just come off of two Super Bowls in a row. We played in one Super Bowl 31 against the Patriots, and the next year we lost to the Broncos. And so after that next Super Bowl, that's when I came to the Oilers at the time, and so the feeling the fans were still getting kind of used to the new team, and they don't really think they felt ownership of the team yet because it was still the Oilers. And so there was definitely a different feeling here than there was in Green Bay, but it didn't take long to change that.
definitely. And the transition did the players know that they were eventually going to be renamed and stuff like that? And it was just being talked about, right, at that time?
Yeah, it was being talked about and some names thrown around. We were kind of getting updates occasionally during that season prior, and so it was really something to look forward to for us. And I think that last year as the Oilers, we were 8-8 and didn't make the playoffs. But the next year we changed things around a little bit.
Definitely. And we'll definitely talk about that year. But when you guys transitioned from the Tennessee Oilers, and I remember, doing you guys had the uniform display, right? The Tennessee Titans. How was that day? And can you explain that? Because you were up there with Frank Wycheck and all the guys, Eddie George, revealing the new Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, that was a special day, and I think that's really the day that kind of almost the whole mood shift in this town,
Okay.
because now they felt like it was theirs. This team was theirs, and they had something to kind of wrap their arms around and root for. And so that day I'll never forget it. I felt kind of embarrassed because here I'm behind Eddie George, who's like a chiseled god, and then Frank White checks this. Here comes the kicker out. I'm like, oh man, I felt I felt a little bit out of my element there, but it will definitely be a day I'll never forget.
Definitely. Now, when they had you with the different displays and stuff, they told you already, hey, you're going to be wearing this combo and stuff like that. And how did it feel? What'd you guys think of it when you guys first, got it?
Well, there was mixed feelings.
Okay.
Different guys had their favorites, but I think if I remember it, I got to wear the blue on blue,
Yep.
dark blue on blue, and that was my favorite. So I was happy to get that one. I wasn't a big fan of the white on white at the time, but and I think that was Frank Wycheck. But anyway, we all had our favorites, but the blue and blue was mine.
Blue and blue was, I mean, it was fantastic, man. Um, Going through your season, right? You get here, like I said, Tennessee Titans. That year was a special year, as everyone knows. Get to the Super Bowl. Did you feel throughout the whole season, where did it kind of change where you're like, hey, like we really have something going here. We can actually go all the way.
Well, I think I think we all felt like we didn't really have a weakness.
Okay.
If the offense didn't play well, then the defense was able to pick them up. And if the didn't play well, maybe the special teams would have a great day. So I felt like we had a lot of camaraderie on the team that where we felt like if somebody didn't do their job, somebody else was going to pick them up. And it's a whole different feeling on a winning team like that when you can feel like that. And one part of the team doesn't have to carry the whole team. And that was an plus. We all got along really good. There was no drama on the team or anything like that, and we all played hard for each other, and we all respected Coach Fisher and the type of coach he was. And when you respect your coach, you play hard for him, and that was that team that year.
Okay. That's interesting that aspect. Now, is there any memorable game for you for that year that kind of sticks out and you're like, man, just brings back memories for
Well,
that?
I think without a doubt, it's probably Music City Miracle. That was an incredible. I'll never forget that play. We had practiced that play every single week
Mhm.
since I had been there, even
Okay.
when we were the Oilers, and so everybody was well versed on what to do. We always practiced it on a Saturday before the game. It was our last thing we did, and it was down to guys basically just they knew exactly what they were supposed to do. And when that time came and he called that play, home run throwback was the name of it. Coach Lowry called that play, and guys just shook their head. And I looked, I was standing right next to Steve McNair at the time, and I said, Steve, we're going to score. And he goes, I hope so. He called me Jaime. He said, I hope so, Jaime. And when he was running down the sideline, Kevin Dyson was running down the sideline. Steve and I were jumping up and down and hugging each other. And but what people don't really realize is that we still had to kick off after that.
Oh, yeah.
There was a few seconds left on the clock, and so we had to kick to them. And I was the kickoff guy at the time. And people don't really know this, but we squib kicked it to try to
Mhm.
just take time off the clock and run the clock out. But they returned it, and they were within one guy of breaking it themselves for the win, last play of the game. So it was very close, and man, I'm so glad they didn't break through because I was the last guy to be able to tackle him.
Now, how is that? Especially you guys we just finished scoring, especially on that play. How are your nerves? What was going through your mind as you're like, oh man, I have to do this now? How was that feeling, man? That must have been wild, huh?
Well, it's kind of two feelings. It's one, you're so high from what just happened, and your
Mhm.
adrenaline's pumping so hard, and the guys on the kickoff team, you almost got to settle them down because they're just ready to go down and just annihilate somebody, but that's when things get out of control when guys run down out of control, and so it almost happened that play, and that's it goes from that to instant relief and just elation. The locker room was crazy afterwards, and I'll never forget people walking out of the stadium before that play, and those are the people who are regretting leaving that game a little bit early. But still, the sounds in that stadium after that play or during that play, with the Mike Keith announcing the thing, it's a miracle, it's a miracle. It'll go down as one of the best plays in NFL history.
100%, man. That's iconic. And I know you haven't heard it yet, but my intro, one parts of that is the Music City Miracle, and it's Kevin Dyson. Right? I mean, it's an iconic play. That's something that's, you know, beyond belief. And I had Kevin Dyson on before, and he explained to me that whole process, and it's wild. It's something like you said, it's ingrained in Tennessee Titans history, and it will
Yeah,
be forever.
yeah.
Um, Now you know the feeling of losing a Super Bowl, like you said you and with the Packers, you know this feeling of winning the Super Bowl, right? What was the difference, compared to the Packers loss compared to the Titans loss against the Rams, man?
Well, I think it was similar, and obviously it's extreme disappointment. You're so close to getting another ring, but the feeling of winning it it's the pinnacle, obviously the pinnacle of what we do, and once you win that, it's almost like you just the check mark is there, and what else can you do besides win a Super Bowl?
Yeah, definitely.
And going into our second Super Bowl in a row with the Packers, we were heavy favorites. We were 13 or 15-point favorites against the Broncos, and that was when John Elway won his first
Mhm.
Super Bowl, and they just came in and they beat us. I mean, they ran the ball on us, and we couldn't stop the run, and we made some mistakes, and that was extreme disappointment because that was the one that we should have won, and
Yeah,
we didn't. And then 2 years later, I go with the Titans again, and it was a different feeling because no one had ever really been there before with the Titans, and the Packers guys had been there the year prior, but in this one, everybody was kind of nervous, and it was a little bit crazy in the locker room, and you could just tell it was very tense.
hmm
And but man, what a game, and what an effort by our guys that day, and we just ran into a buzzsaw with the Rams.
yeah. Again, it's one of those I remember watching when I was younger, and I was like, man, it's just so heartbreaking. You never want to see the other team, especially them celebrating you guys just picking up your stuff and
Yeah,
whatnot. But again, um, talking a little bit about the Titans, okay. Let's go a little bit back because I got a little carried away because they were talking about, the uniforms and whatnot. What made you want to be a punter? Was that kind of your whole thing when you were younger, or how did you fall into it? Is there anyone that you mentored or kind of look up to when you were younger? Or
yeah. So I started playing soccer when I was 5 years old, back
okay,
in near St. Louis in Illinois. And my brother, who was 4 years older than me, we used to go out and kick the soccer ball around. And my dad had built a soccer goal in our side yard. And so one day we got tired of kicking soccer balls into it. We decided to kick footballs over it. And so it was competition every day, who could kick the furthest. And so we'd kick them over the goalpost and then punt them back to my dad, kick them over, punt them back. For hours we would do that. And then one day, a few years after we started this, I actually passed my brother up, and he got mad and quit, and I kept going. So eventually I was able to get to the end of my yard and cross the street into the neighbor's yard and go almost to the neighbor's front porch to kick field goals over the
oh,
crossbar. But at that point, I had never played football before,
mhm.
and I didn't start playing football until high school.
Okay.
And so in high school, I was a quarterback and a safety. And I remember one day at practice, the coach said, and I was really shy at the time. The coach said, "Can anybody punt or kick?" And I kind of looked around the team and waiting for somebody else to raise their hand because I was very shy,
hmm
and no one did. So I kind of raised my hand, and that started my whole career. I kicked 4 years in high school, played quarterback and safety, and then got recruited by Notre Dame after my freshman year in high school, and the rest is history.
Look at that, man. Wow. Who would ever thought? And I mean, like I said, one of the very best to do it. I mean, something the Tennessee Titans really, really have down packed, I would say, would be running backs, punters, and kickers. I mean, we're good with that. I mean, you go from, you You go to Brett Kern. I mean, you have Stonehouse now. It's crazy. And then, like I said, kicking wise too. How important is a punter and the kicker? Like they have to be. You guys kind of have to be in sync, right? Because again, a lot of people don't. We can always talk about, we can almost kind of relate to, quarterback and running back and this and that, but to get a really good grasp of what a punter does, obviously we know what they're supposed to do, but just going through their mind and their motion and who they have to rely on, like the kicker, right?
Yeah, so as a punter, we're considered a defensive player. And I'll never forget a quote by John Madden. And he said, the best defensive player I ever coached was Ray Guy, who was their punter at the time. And Ray Guy is the only punter in the Hall of Fame. And so that just goes to show you how important a punter could be for their defense.
Yeah.
So if you can flip the field for your defense and make the opposing team maybe get one or two extra first downs, to have to get one or two extra first downs to score, then you've done your job. So we punters are defensive players in that we determine field position.
Yeah.
Kickers are almost like I wouldn't say savior type people, but when an offense stalls, we have to be the ones to score the points, and sometimes these points are will win and lose games, obviously. So I remember holding for Rob Baronis in a Texans game several years ago, and I think he made 8 field goals in the game and broke an NFL record. So it just goes to show you that both kickers and punters are vital to victories for a team.
Definitely. And how often do you guys like your practice? What does that consist of? It's like, hey, you're just gonna be kicking it. I'm just gonna be, getting the what, like the form right, getting the ball right, and just going off like that, or how does that really work? Because again, I don't really talk too much to punters, so I'm
Yeah,
interested.
that's okay. No, that's okay. So what we do is a repetitive motion. So a lot of my practice time was drill work and training my body to do the same exact thing every single time. It's not like any other position in football. Quarterbacks are doing different things all the time, but punters and kickers do the exact same or want to do the exact same thing every single time because that's where consistency comes from.
Mhm.
And so a lot of my practice time was drill work. We would kick punts to returners to work on their catching and their in the return game. Uh, we spent a lot of time with our snapper because obviously we don't get to do what we do without catching snaps and fielding the ball and things like that. So the kicker and the punter and the snapper are kind of the best buddies on the team because we spend a lot of time together. And as punters, typically punters are the holders for field goals.
Yep.
And so it takes a lot of practice and a lot of repetition to become good at that. And it's probably, in my opinion, the hardest job that I had in the NFL was holding for field goals, because really, if you think about it, somebody else's job determined on what I did. And so it's kind of like double pressure there. You got to catch the ball, you've got to put the ball in a certain spot, probably about the size of a silver dollar. You've
Okay.
got to spin laces to the front. You've got to lean the ball a certain way so the kicker can actually kick it through. And so there's a lot of things going on in a short amount of time that requires a lot of repetitions to get good at it.
Yeah, you don't want to be a Ray Finkel, laces Almer. You
No
know,
Finkel.
Yeah, no Finkel. All right, that's interesting. Yeah, I always found that like really, really interesting just to kind of understand that situation and especially like practicing. Like so like on an average for like a practice and stuff, like how many punts did you normally, how many kicks did you usually have? It was like an hour, it's like 20 minutes. How does that repetition go?
Well, a lot of our stuff, a lot of our work is done before practice in the first part of practice. So we would go out extra early before practice, and we would get I'd do the drill work and the stretching and things like that, and then we would actually work on our specific craft, whether it be punting or kicking, by ourselves. We would kick to the return men, work on different things that the opposing team might do as far as kicking to corners and things like that to the return men to help them, but also work on our technique. Our technique, it's kind of like a golfer. If you stop hitting golf balls for a while, you're going to lose a few things. And it's the same thing with punters. The more repetition, the better you can train your body to do something the exact same way every single time, the more consistent you're going to be. And so it gets boring at times, but consistency will keep you in the league for a long time.
And I mean, look, speaking of it, man, you have it. Now, when it comes to like punting, right? What's the most important thing you would say? Is it hang time? Is it direct? Like what is for you? What is it? I'm just trying.
Yeah, so there's different schools of punting. There's the school that says, "Hey, kick it as far as you can kick it, and we're
Mhm.
just going to cover it. I don't care how long the return is. We're going to tackle them." And then there's a school of thought of, "Hey, let's get the hang time, cause a fair catch, so there's no risk."
Okay.
And so there's kind of two different schools that are in the league. Um, Coach Alan Lowry, who was my special teams coach while I was here, he loved the hang time. So he loved the low risk, um, no big returns opportunities for the opposing team because our defense was so good at the time. So that was kind of where I was playing in around here. Now a lot of guys, or nowadays a lot of guys are just kicking it as far as they want to kick it,
Hmm.
and trying to cover it. You know, if you kick a 60-yard punt, they may get a 20-yard return, but you're still gaining 40 yards.
Yeah.
So it's really like kicking a 40-yard fair catch.
Gotcha.
But there is a lot more risk involved because you can run it back for a touchdown. So that's kind of my two schools of thought in punting, and kind of what goes on today.
So, and so your opinion, you would say you want to do the hang time, right? That's what you want to kind of work on.
Yeah, not my goal was always a 45 to 50-yard fair catch. So
Okay.
if I kicked it 55, it better have enough hang time for us to get down and cover it.
Gotcha.
But if I hit a good one and this ball turned over and it was, we try to match up hang time and distance. So let's say if I want to kick it 50 yards, it
Okay.
better be a 5.0 hang time,
Gotcha.
5 second hang time,
Gotcha.
5.2 for 52 yards. So I
Mhm.
always tried to match up that hang time and distance, and that was usually would usually cause a fair catch.
And the same thing, I'm assuming same thing with weather-wise and different locations, colder compared to hotter, and then wind. When it's wind, what you're kicking, well, obviously, if the wind's behind you, you want to kick it obvious, and if it's coming towards you, it's it's a pain in the ass, huh?
It is a little bit, and wind is kind of our nemesis as a punter because
Yeah.
we're kicking a moving ball, and
Yeah.
once this ball leaves our hand, once we drop it,
Hmm.
we have no control over it. So, if I'm kicking into the wind, obviously I want to hit a lower, more driving punt to get more distance, and the wind's going to take care of the hang time and make it hang a little bit more. If I'm downwind, I want to kick the ball higher and let the wind do its work and carry it further. So, yeah, that's how I kind of dealt with the wind. And as far as directional punting, we have to kick to corners too. We have to kick right corner, left corner,
Yeah.
because that's where our coverage is covering. So there's a lot of factors involved that people don't really think about, that happen during a punt.
Yeah, that's very interesting because again, I mean, speaking of the Tennessee Titans, the special teams unit right now is struggling with.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, you watch them, right? So, and that was just something I was interested in finding out and listening to you and seeing what the issue was there, or if you see anything, because they said it's one thing. Cole Anderson says one thing, and he says it's the effort the guys are given, but then Stonehouse has been, I think, 3 or 4 block punts already, so that already probably puts someone, especially a punter, at on edge, right? It has to tense him up just because he can't be comfortable punting.
Yeah, it does, and kind of, when you get the first one blocked, it kind of opens up a can on you,
Yeah,
because people are going to come from now on. They're going to come try to block one because they know they can get there. So you
gotcha.
kind of have to break that cycle of people rushing, and the way you do that, quite honestly, the way Coach Fisher always dealt with that is we ran fakes. We ran a lot of fakes in my time, and so if you run a fake and they're rushing, you're
Oh,
going to get a free first down. So in my opinion, that would be my advice to the coach or whoever would ask me, and not that they're going to ask me, but
yeah.
I would say, hey, if you want to stop the rush, run a fake.
That's it. That kind of breaks it. Okay. It's interesting. Yeah. Because like I said, it was always interesting, just the whole process of being a punter and holding it for a kicker. Like I said, it looks a lot easier. Everyone always complains when they miss field goal or this and that, but I I tried it before, like last year.
Didn't go so well.
Yeah, it's very, very hard. I'm like, man, I tried to kick from like the front of like my toe, and I try to get underneath. It was terrible. I'm like, I don't know how these guys do it, but then again, I'm Joe Schmo here, that's when I stopped talking. I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna be saying like, oh my God, he missed a 40-yarder. I'm like, I can't
Yeah.
pass 10 yards. So you know what?
Well, this will put it in perspective for a lot of people is that
Mhm.
as a punter, from the time the ball moves in the snapper's hands to the time it comes off of the punter's foot is
Mhm.
right around 2 seconds to 2.1 seconds. So the ball has to travel 15 yards. You have to catch it as a punter. You have to rotate laces to the top. You have to take 2 to 2.5 steps. You have to drop the ball and punt it in just over 2 seconds. So there's a lot of things that go on in 2 seconds that people don't realize. In kicking, it's the same way. From the snap uh, to when the holder catches the ball and the kicker kicks it
Mhm.
is about 1.2 seconds. So the ball's traveling 8 yards. You're catching it as a holder. You're putting it in a spot the size of a silver dollar. You're rotating laces to the front. You're leaning the ball, and the kicker kicks it in 1.2 seconds. So that's why we need so many repetitions in practice. Is that this has to be kind of a machine that happens. That's why it looks so easy for a lot of people.
Got you. That's wild. Again, hopefully people that are watching this will get a little bit more perspective and be like, you know what? I'm just gonna hold my truth. Maybe I'm not gonna talk too much because like I said,
Well, you look on college game day and you see how hard the kickers are to make the field goal. I mean, it
yeah.
doesn't happen very often. And
Okay.
that's only from 30 yards or 35 yards or whatever it is.
It's wild. It's wild. Let's talk a little bit about Titans. Three most memorable, I think you already named one, obviously, but three memorable moments uh as in your Titan career, maybe game wise or situation.
Hmm. Well, it'll have to be, and obviously the Music City Miracle is one. I would say, and that's a hard one. The opening kickoff of the Super Bowl. I got to kick off the Super Bowl with the Titans.
Mhm.
When you're kicking off the Super Bowl, a lot of things are going through your mind. So when you're on turf, I don't know if you ever heard the term turf monster. You ever hear the term turf
Oh, no, no,
monster?
no. Uh-uh.
So when the turf kind of grabs your foot and you kind of trip, it's
Okay.
called the turf monster getting you.
Okay.
So everybody has in your mind, don't let the turf monster get you on the opening kickoff, on national TV. So that's one thing that you always think about. And the second thing is when you kick this ball off, at that time people had they take pictures, right? Yeah, and it would strobe almost strobe at you, and it was the wildest feeling down there when you see all these strobes coming at you and you're trying to kick off. That was
Well, I
another
never
memorable
thought
moment.
about that because I mean nowadays everyone's right. Everyone's so there's no flash at all. I didn't think about that, and that's a big difference. In back in the day, yeah, because once those lights, it was beautiful to see, but damn, I didn't even think about the player. That's
Yeah,
terrible.
it's pretty cool though. You wouldn't believe the adrenaline rush you get out there. I mean, every hair in your body's standing on end, and it's just electric in the place. And so that would probably be the second one. The third one, I would have to say, uh, maybe when I think we went 13-3 one year, and we had the number one seed in the playoffs, and we lost to the Ravens at home.
Yeah, dude, I
That
remember.
was another one that was a tough one.
Yeah, that was oh man, those Ravens, they keep taking our players and this and that.
We had some good battles with them though.
Oh man, it was the best. It was the best. Talking about teammates and stuff, you said that your kicker and your holder, your uh, those were your guys. Was Rob Baronis, right? Del Greco. Do you still talk to Al Del Greco and you still golf with him and stuff like that? I know I have a
I,
fan question here, which is funny, but
yeah.
by any
I do still talk to Alan. I haven't golfed in a little while, but he's actually the golf coach down at Sanford in Birmingham, and so he's still in the golf business, and he's very, very good at it. So, yeah, I still talk to Al. I talk to a lot of guys on the team. We get together now and then, and we got one of our buddies, Tim Shaw, is going through some
Yep.
some ALS, and so we try to get together with him now and then, and as a group, and just kind of get together and talk and hang out. So all these guys are still we still get together and we still love to be around each other.
That's awesome. Again, that camaraderie is something it's amazing. All right. Got the fan questions now. We'll get that out of the way. And again, a lot of good questions. I had to narrow them down. I couldn't ask all of them, but the first one I want to ask, okay, it's a friend of mine. Her name's Haley from Twitter. She says he was part of the 3 and 13 teams that were number one seeds. Both lost to the Ravens in the divisional round, 2000 and 2008. What was the difference in the feel of those two teams, and which was the harder loss? There was always a lot of hype around the 2000 team after the Super Bowl appearance, while the 2008 team kind of came out of nowhere, which with Kerry Collins.
Yeah, I think probably the hardest one was probably if it was 2000, I can't remember the years, but if it was 2000, it would be that first one,
Mm-hmm.
just because of the anticipation of a great season following the Super Bowl. And
Yeah,
we were so good that year, and we were on cruise control most of the year, and we didn't get her done in the playoffs, but that was probably the toughest of the two,
gotcha.
just because of what happened a year prior.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Titan. This guy's name is Titan Spain. Again, a good friend. Obviously lives in Spain. Big Titans fan. He wants to know, in your opinion, the most difficult part of a punt: the snap, the ball handle, the drop, or the kick, and why? So
Well, without question, the drop.
the drop.
So a drop is 70-80% of a good punt is the drop.
Okay.
And so I do a lot of coaching of punters and kickers now. And I always tell my students, you can have a perfect drop and horrible technique and still hit good punts. But you can have perfect technique and a bad drop, and you're going to hit a bad punt every single time. So the drop is crucial to a punter because if the ball's in the wrong position, you can't kick it.
Yeah.
And so you have to get so good at a perfect drop in order to hit a good punt that's just kind of that's the number one thing a punter needs to work on.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Now this is David Clark again. David Clark lives in Michigan, a good buddy of mine. He wants to know, did you get more satisfaction out of hitting a long punt or pinning your opponent deep in their end zone? He said you can't say both.
Well, I wouldn't say both because the one to me is more important than the other. I was
Okay.
never a big stat guy. I didn't really care what the average, just stats happened. But I loved seeing the opponent starting with the rear end on the goal line. So if I could pin them down at the 1 yard line, I
Mhm.
had done my job. And there were several times in my career when we got safeties or points out of a punt that we down on the 1 yard line. So without question, it's that down punt on the one.
Perfect. Perfect. This is Ryan Harris. Ryan Harris wants to know any great stories on Rob Baronis. He wants to hear
Hmm.
Rob Baronis.
Well, Rob was an interesting character. He was kind of the poster boy for ADD, I guess you could say. I was always in charge of controlling Rob on game day. So Rob would be back in the kicking balls into the kicking net, waving up at his girlfriend or whatever, and all of a sudden now it's time to kick, and he's over there waving at so I have to go get him, pull him out on the field, and get him focused on the field goal. But that was just Rob, and that's why he was so good, is because he didn't really have that long-term memory. If he missed one, it was gone with it by the time he got back to the sideline, and the next time he made it. So he was a great kicker, but definitely a different character.
That's pretty funny. What was the difference between him and Del Greco? I know you guys
Del
had.
Greco was Al was much more routined and regimented, I guess. Al was he was an incredibly accurate kicker.
Mhm.
Uh, Usually, if he missed, it was because of me. So Al was very, very accurate. I didn't have the biggest leg, and so I got to kick some long field goals when Al was here.
Okay.
But inside 50 yards, you could pretty much count it as three. And so he was much more regimented and just disciplined. And Rob was kind of a free will and freewheeling and could kick it from 60 or 65 yards.
With no problem. And you
Yep.
ever you ever you ever mess with Al Greco with his the face mask? Do you ever?
Of course we did. He didn't have the little. Gary Anderson had the little one.
He did. He
It
did.
wasn't Al. Al had regular, but Gary Anderson had the one.
That's
Yeah.
another one, man. Again, what a Gary Anderson was awesome. Yeah. Uh, let's see. We have another one. We have my friend Rowdy G. Cole wants to know, curious to know, is he better golfer than Brett Kern?
No. Brett, see, I haven't played. I've had some physical issues the last few years, and I haven't played any golf.
Mhm.
But Brett is a very good golfer, a very good athlete. So at this point in time, Brett could whoop me pretty good. But if and when I get back into golf here soon, I'm going to practice up, and we're going to have a battle.
There you go. We have one more. His name is Ryan Flory. Excuse me. He asked if he can come coach the special teams for us. And there's been several. I had to like kind of limit down, but there's been like two or three people that have kind of asked the same thing with the Tennessee Titans. It's like, hey, can you coach special team for us?
Well, I'll tell you, it's there's been some bad luck there too, and I hope he does well. The coach does well. I know he's a good coach, and guys think highly of him. And I just there's been some bad luck there. So just be patient. Things are going to turn around.
Yeah, definitely. Because man, and and the last thing for me was your journey through the Tennessee Titans, Um, can you talk a little bit? I know we talked already about the 2000 Titans. Can you talk about maybe, the Vince Young years? What did you get from that team? What kind of I guess how was that team compared to the 2000s and just in general how the players because again you saw different eras of Tennessee Titans football and then to the your last 2008 and stuff in that team if you could.
Yeah. So back when the most, in my opinion, the most important part of a team is just a solid, dependable quarterback. I mean, when I got here, we had Steve, and everybody rallied around him. And when after Steve retired, left, and we had kind of revolving quarterbacks, no one could really get, I guess I don't know what the word is, but no one could really get in tune with kind of the whole offensive stuff, things, and it was just a different feeling that no one could really kind of grab onto and wrap their arms around.
Mhm.
Just a great quarterback, and not to say that these guys weren't great. Kerry Collins a great quarterback, and Neil O'Donnell's a great quarterback, but this was just the revolving door of every year or two. We had a different quarterback, and I think that was tough for a lot of guys to really just.
Kind of get on board with almost.
To get on board with, yeah, and just kind of get comfortable with because something was always different.
Gotcha. And then that 2000, what was your last year? You said 2009, right?
2009 season, yes.
um How was that? And then talking maybe about your relationship with a Brett Kern and stuff like that.
Yeah, so my last year in 2009, I think it was the second or third game of the season. I actually tore my calf muscle and got put on injury reserve, and that's kind of what ended my career. So when I got hurt, Brett Kern came in from Denver. He was a rookie at the time with Denver, and he got cut by Denver, which was great for us because he ended up being an awesome punter for lots and lots of years. But when he came in, you could really tell he had the potential of to be a great punter. He had the size, he had the leg speed, he had the consistency. His drop was really good, and he had a good head on his shoulders. Not, with all those things combined, he was kind of a you couldn't really go wrong with keeping him because of the potential that he had at the time. And a few years beyond that, and all of a sudden, I think he played in three Pro Bowls and played for 14 or 15 years here, or whatever it was, and was just. I always say that if you never hear anything about the punter, then the punter has done their job.
Okay.
And for a lot of those years, it was just taken care of. Don't worry about it. Brett's got it. And so it was just it was fun for me to see because when he came in from Denver, he was a little bit raw and he was a little bit nervous, but the way in which he calmed down and just kind of played and did his job and didn't complain and didn't nothing ever negative came out of him. He just did his job, and that's what it takes to be a great player, in my opinion.
Well, like we said, we have been very blessed and comfortable having back-to-back great punters. And it's been over years, not just like no 2 years or like the quarterback situation. And we had some lengthy, really, really good. So we've been kind of, I would say it's with the Tennessee Titans. It's always been like that. Like I said, and I just want to say, man, it's been a awesome watching you. It was an honor watching you. Everything you left on the field. I mean, as Titan fans, we love you still. Like I said, everyone
Yeah.
was so psyched when I announced that you were coming on. I was excited just to hear some stories and understand the punting situation. I want to send some videos. I want to send
Well,
some. See if I'm
here's what I want to say though.
all
So
right.
I just launched
Go
a
ahead.
Master Your Punting and Kicking app,
There
and
you
so
go.
if you want to learn how to punt, get the app, and I'll teach you right online.
Look at that. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from you can't go it can't get any better than that. That's awesome. So so it's master your punter
MPK,
and
and it
PK.
stands for Master Your Punting and Kicking. It's kind of a one-stop shop for punters, kickers, and holders
Okay.
to learn how to do it the right way, in my opinion.
There you go. The right way. Get the drop. No Ray Finkel, right?
No Finkel.
No Finkel. But Craig, I want to say thank you again for your time and I appreciate you coming on, man. It was awesome to have you on and
Well,
talk.
good anytime.
All right. God
Have a
bless
good
you.
one.
I know, man.
All right.